Hey, what's up everybody, this is Muth24, and today I'm taking a look at the Moon Knight Death of Marc Spector collection. This is one of the graphic novels that I grabbed at the Grand Rapids Comic Con, kind of on a whim, just because they had a bunch of graphic novels for really, really cheap, and couldn't pass up the opportunity to grab some nicely varied entries in my comic book collection and sort of flesh it out a little bit more than the typical Guardians, Novus, Venom stuff that I'm really big into. And Moon Knight, I had actually read the Brian Michael Bendis run before I read this one. I've also read a couple random Moon Knight issues here and there, but this one kind of stood out to me because when Marvel does these sort of death of characters events, they're really hit or miss. So I was very curious to see if they handled Moon Knight in a way that was like a proper send-off to this character, like did something different, or was just sort of a cheap cash-in of like, we're going to do this death of a character name and then have them revived in, 3 months' time or whatever. I was pleasantly surprised by this story. I was kind of hesitant when I started it knowing what time period this takes place, because this is actually written around the same time as the Dark Avengers post-Civil War stuff, when Norman Osborn's Dark Avengers are kind of rising up in the ranks there. Tony Stark's having trouble policing all the different S.H.I.E.L.D. divisions and all the different superheroes and all that. And Marc Spector kind of comes on the radar as a little blip that's becoming increasingly annoying to both S.H.I.E.L.D. and the Dark Avengers. The reason for that is that Marc Spector, as I understand it, was opposed to the Superhero Registration Act and has sort of just gone rogue. He's doing everything as a vigilante, which is kind of what his routine always was. He wasn't really anyone who had superpowers. He's always got these gadgets and whatnot, and he's policing smaller scale villains or smaller scale operations and all that. But the fact that he's doing things now illegally, as far as S.H.I.E.L.D. is concerned, makes him a little bit of an annoyance to them. And so it starts off with them trying to get a position on him and sort of take him on by themselves, track down where he is. And they kind of go about this by sending a little special operations squad in, and they end up getting bested. And Tony's not very happy about that. And they keep trying to find out more information through some of the people who are close to Marc Spector, and none of them are really any help to him because Marc Spector has sort of just gone off the map. He's not on the grid anymore. He's hiding out somewhere, and he's done his best to try and get as few people involved as possible because, one, he doesn't want them getting hurt, and two, this is his fight, right? This is his own deal to take on. So when Tony's team kind of screws up there, Norman Osborn takes it upon himself to coordinate his Dark Avengers to go in on this gig to, one, take down Moon Knight, and two, sort of prove themselves as being more favored in the public eye than Tony's current S.H.I.E.L.D. administration. So there's a little bit of a political bid going on there. And that makes for an interesting, I think, backstory to this. It doesn't need a lot more setup than that. And it's really kind of funny to see how incompetent some of the Dark Avengers were, even though, Norman tries to play them up as this, new, little less by-the-book superhero squad, even though they're all supervillains that are operating in almost like a Thunderbolt sort of routine, but obviously they're not really good guys in any capacity. My favorite throwdowns in here are namely with Venom and Bullseye, who comes in later. And Norman Osborn does not get directly involved with the search for Moon Knight. He's just sort of the administration angle of things, while all the other heroes, or rather villains dressed up as heroes, go out of their way to try and take on Moon Knight. The art in this is a little different than I'm used to. Some of the character designs are a little exaggerated. Like that particularly muscled version of Moon Knight is a little odd to me because Marc Spector, at least in the more recent stuff, is not shown to be quite that beefy in terms of his muscle definition. But obviously Venom hulking over him like that is really cool. Some of the other characters look a lot more thin, and I mean, it's a superhero comic book, so Impossible Proportions is nothing really new, but I'm not quite as hot on this art style as I was in the Brian Michael Bendis written series. But we do get sort of a little bit of information on the Moon Knight history, you know, how he's been doing things for so many years and how he's kind of built his name and where he stands as a hero and an individual and all that. Here's the Bullseye stuff that I mentioned. But I think the individual issue art that they put in here is really cool. And they had a lot of fun with that, obviously. But it's kind of cool to see them sort of throw down in the streets, go mano a mano. And they also show a little bit more crazy Moon Knight tech in this than they did in the more current stuff. In that he has a jet that's shaped like his half-moon boomerang thingy. That I'm sure he used a lot more in the old comics, because that was, you know, not uncommon for superheroes to have more vehicles like that, whether they needed them or not. You know, the spider buggy, the Fantastic Car, and all that sort of stuff. A little bit more common in older comics than in the new stuff. But the direction that they handled the ending of this, I won't spoil it, but the way they handle the sort of end of this Moon Knight tale is really smart. I definitely appreciate the different environments that they put him in and the different scenarios that they put him in such a short span. And it was a very entertaining read as a whole. I don't know that I quite enjoyed it as much as the Brian Michael Bendis run, but it's still a really solid read. And again, it's relatively self-contained. So if you are, you know, a longtime Moon Knight fan, I can't really speak as much for that, but I think you'll still probably enjoy it as a story all its own. If you are looking for something that's relatively easy to jump into, I think as long as you know what the outcome of Civil War was and sort of how that spawned the Dark Avengers stuff, you should have no problem jumping right into this and reading it as its own thing. And really, you don't even have to read Civil War. I recommend it because Civil War is really well written, but you don't have to really read that much of the Dark Avengers or Civil War stuff. You can just, Google those on the Marvel Wiki real quick, and then you'll be up to speed enough to jump into the story. But yeah, I think it's a really solid standalone story there, and it's decently thick too. You get quite a bit there for I think it retails for $16.99, so that's actually not too bad. This is a parental advisory issue, and I don't think it's super gory or anything, but it is pretty violent, and there's a lot of adult language implied by some of the characters. I mean, they still do that sort of censoring with different symbols and all that, stars and signs and exclamation points and all that. But that said, it isn't, quite as family-friendly a read as some of the other stuff. Definitely a little bit more adult in tone than the Brian Michael Bendis series that I previously talked about. So just keep that in mind if you're looking at getting this. This is intended for older readers. But that said, it is a solid read by itself. So that's pretty much it for this review. And with that, I will see you guys next time.